Hello, friends. Hello, Jayney. How are you?
Oh, fabulous. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me, Ashley.
I'm very excited to have you today. It's great to be able to spend a little bit of time talking through the subject of today's event. As you and I were chatting before, I think this is a perfect moment to take a beat and invite our audience and spend some time thinking through positive psychology
Yes.
against a backdrop of very challenging a very challenging moment that we're all collectively navigating. So great to have you with us. Audience, if you can do me a favor and just drop in the comments if you can see us and hear us, and also, let us know where you might be tuning in from. It's always nice to see a little bit of the geographic distribution of our audience. Um, my name is Ashley. I'm with the Discover team at Teachable, and I have the great fortune of being able to chat with wonderful creators and leaders in their fields, like Jayney, and to invite them to share their wisdom with you all. So, really looking forward to today's event. Couple reminders before we get started. Oh, thank you, Lisa, for letting us know that you can see and hear. And in the UK, all right, yeah, we I believe we'll have an international session today, so it's very exciting to welcome friends from from all sides of the pond to the session. Just to let you all know, there will be a replay of this event available for everyone who's registered. You'll get an email after today's event that has a link to the replay, and you can also access it through the YouTube page that you're streaming from right now. So the Discover YouTube page, Jayney's wisdom will be posted there, so you can refer back to it as we are hopefully continuing to build some of the skills that she'll help us develop today. A couple of other quick things. I'll hop off screen, but I'll be active in the chat. So if you have questions, if there's anything that you would like to bring up with Jayney or discuss with the group, by all means, drop that in the chat, and I'm happy to make sure that we can spend some time during the Q&A to cover that. Other than that, I will just say we are fortunate to have an expert in really what I think could be just described as like a very valuable skill, especially for this moment, resilience and positive psychology, and these skills that I think everybody could just kind of use a little bit of foundation in right now as we're navigating through a lot of uncertainty. Jayney, before we get started, I would love to just hear a little bit about how you got onto the path that you are on now. So you spent quite a bit of time as a health practitioner. You have done lots of different educational had lots of different educational roles as well. So in complementary medicine and natural health, broadcasting, writing, lecturing. But just rewind a little bit for us and share how you got to this path, if you don't mind.
Sure thing. Well, yeah, absolutely. Thank you for asking, and thank you for having me. It's just such a privilege to be with you today, Ashley. So it's really a thrill. And so greetings, everybody, from the south of England. That's where I am at the moment. So Ashley, to answer your question, I started off life as a ballet dancer. And long story short, fell into becoming a circus artist. What was happening was that sort of way back when, we were always told, if you ever get offered a contract that has an equity contract, it was very important back in those days. It was that sort of magic card that would allow you to go and work, in TV or the West End or wherever. If you get a contract like that, you must take it. So lo and behold, a circus came along and we were told, go and audition for that job because it's an equity contract. So we did. I ended up this way becoming accidentally a circus artist doing high high wire, flying trapeze, riding
This was
elephant.
my dream when I was little.
Yes. I literally am the girl that ran away to the circus. And anyway, all because of the equity card. So what happened was that I was working very hard. We were traveling in some very, very obscure places. We were getting injuries, no access to conventional medicine whatsoever. So they would bring in, if we got injured, as we frequently did, they would bring in the local medicine man or the witch doctor or the, anybody who was doing sort of indigenous medicine. And these things worked. They worked brilliantly, and we had no access to anything else anyway. So we had to use these things. So that really piqued my interest. That's what got me onto this kind of path of believing that conventional medicine, it has fantastic answers. I mean, for goodness sake, if you do have a terrible accident and you break your leg, obviously you have to go to a hospital. But, on the way there, you might be actually sort of taking a particular herb, or you might be taking a homeopathic medicine or something like that to sort of offset and help your body to start and initiate the healing process. So it kind of opened my mind and my eyes to all sorts of different approaches, and realizing that, there is no one true religion when it comes to health and well-being. So when I came back from my travels, I came back and wasn't terribly well. And I ended up developing a problem called rheumatoid arthritis, an autoimmune issue, possibly related to some of the bugs and whatnot that I'd picked up overseas and so on. So I got very, very sick very, very quickly. I went from being a super fit, ballet dancer, essentially, slash circus artist, a bit like the people that you see in Cirque du Soleil, because everything I was doing was like a forerunner to Cirque du Soleil. And I went from there to being in a wheelchair, full-time wheelchair user, within 3 weeks. And it took me 10 years to figure out what was going on with me and what I had to do to actually get myself well. At my very worst, I was in a hospice and given 2 weeks to live and really expected not to make it. So I've really been, I've really sort of looked death in the face through incredibly severe ill health. And I've brought myself back from there by using many of the skills and lifestyle approaches that we're going to talk about today. So that's sort of what brings us to this point. Now, what actually happened was after I had, done my stint as a performer, I realized that I wanted to train in something. So I started my first training in homeopathic medicine. And then after that, I bolted on all sorts of other disciplines, as many of us in this field do. And so that's really sort of what got me to where I am today. Culminating, the most recent training I did was at Harvard Medical School under Dr. Herbert Benson, the father of mind-body medicine. And so I learned things like the relaxation response, which I'm going to talk about later, directly from him. So everything I do is fully research based. That's really important, so that everything that we talk about today, we can go to the research. So if there's anything that you're unsure about or that you want to know a bit more about, you can let me know and I can point you towards the research. So it's really crucial that you know that, because a lot of the time in the natural healthcare field, you'll find that there are an awful lot of people out there on the internet who are saying this, this, and this, and this, and this, not necessarily from a platform of any particular research expertise. And I think it's, this is our health we're talking about. We've got to be careful. You can't just sort of run away with with the fairies and just think, oh, I'll just take this herb, it's natural, it works. That may not be the case. In fact, it may be dangerous. So you've got to make sure that everything that we talk about today is right for you. If we talk about any particular approaches, make sure it's sensible for you, it's relevant for you, and that it's something that is actually going to be beneficial. If in doubt, go and see your professional healthcare advisor, whether it's your doctor or your complementary medical practitioner.
I so appreciate that those guardrails for us as we go through this session, because it is especially. I mean, we were chatting before the event about how many challenges we're facing collectively as a human race at the moment, and not the least of which is finding information that's reliable, that is verifiable, that we can trust, because it takes more work now than it used to figure out if something is applicable to you or based in research, as you say. So I really appreciate that. That recommendation for us, as you know, that kind of frame for us to put on as we go through this session. So, and it looks like we've got, you know, folks are ready and excited to hear what you have to say today. And I'll be thrilled to turn it over to you, Jayney. And just to remind everyone, I am in the comments. So if you have questions, drop those there. And without further ado, I will turn it over to you, Jayney.
Thank you so much. I shall share my screen because I've got a presentation that I've put together for you. And so let me get that all queued up for you and make sure I get the right one. There we go. That's it. Lovely. And I'll just make that, that's it there. So what we're talking about today, everybody, is strategies that are proven to work, evidence-based strategies to help you grow happier, healthier, even biologically younger, by harnessing the proven benefits of resilience, love, kindness, and compassion. So, as you know, my name is Jayney. I'm Jayney Goddard. I'm actually president of the Complementary Medical Association. I'm also chair for the British Academy of Lifestyle Medicine. So I've been working in this field now for well over 3 decades, and I've managed to obviously not just get well, having been 10 years as a full-time wheelchair user, but actually rewind my own biological clock and learn how to deal with stressors better and just make some massive changes using the things we're going to talk about today. First of all, let's look at emotional stress. This is one of the key elements that we're seeing in so many people at the moment as a result of, you know, the horrendousness of the last 18 months on a global scale with the pandemic. Well, let's look at some of the most important and often ignored sources of devastating stressors. One of the things I like to talk about or conceptualize is that very often, one of the things that we don't acknowledge is that the thing that sort of gets us out of sorts, knocks us off balance, and causes immense emotional stress, which has that knock-on effect to cause physical illness, is this lack of love, whether it's lack of love from ourselves or others. I always like to teach using that acronym ILL, I lack love. It can be social isolation and loneliness, poor relationships with ourselves and others. These things can cause enormous illness, mentally, emotionally, and physically, and lack of self-compassion. We have to add that in as well. Just because, you know, we're so often on this treadmill, aren't we? And thinking that we've got to achieve, and not actually stepping back and just realizing that we ourselves can be compassionate towards ourselves. This is absolutely crucial. So what happens if we don't manage our response to stress? Remember that stress happens, you know, stressors will happen. Something will come at you out of left field on a Tuesday afternoon, and, you know, when you least expect it. And what happens is that with stress, it's all about, we can't ever get rid of stressors. What we can manage is our response. And if we can manage our response to stress, we're actually way, way ahead of the game. And we're going to come on to much more of this in a bit. All major stressors lead to elevated cortisol levels. Cortisol is a hormone that is elevated when we're exposed to stress or poor sleep, and various other things as well. What it does is it promotes imbalance throughout our entire hormonal cascade. It leads to chronic inflammation, all the devastating diseases that we wrongly associate with being a natural part of the aging process. So I'm talking about most cancers. They are lifestyle related. Type 2 diabetes, type 1 diabetes because it's an autoimmune illness, and all autoimmune illnesses have an underlying inflammatory component to them, chronic inflammatory component, heart disease, kidney disease, diseases of the neurological systems, dementia, other dementias, including Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and so on. So all of these have this underlying common denominator of chronic inflammation. And all this happens as a result of unmanaged stress response. It leads to telomere shortening, which leads to a shorter lifespan. Now, telomeres are the little caps on the ends of our chromosomes. If you think about your shoelaces, if you think, you know, it's got that little plastic bit on the end of your shoelace that stops the shoelace from unraveling. Telomeres are a bit like that. And so what happens is when we've got chronically elevated levels of the stress hormone cortisol, what will happen is that our telomeres get to shorten and shorten and shorten. There's a direct correlation between stress and telomere shortening. And it works like this: unmanaged stress. So where stressors happen and we've just got this knee-jerk reaction and we go panic, 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 and we're not managing the way that we respond. Chronic illness is another reason. And of course, all of this, it sort of just goes round and round and round in a big circle and leads to telomere shortening. And when we have shorter telomeres, it means that we are biologically older. So let's just cover that off. Chronological age is the age that we are in years, the numbers of times that we've been around the sun. So it's kind of useful because it means you know how many candles to put on your birthday cake, but it's not particularly meaningful from a health and well-being perspective. So what we actually need to think about is how old we are in terms of in terms of biological age. And so biological age is a measurement of, for example, the length of our telomeres and various other things that you can measure as well. Things like skin elasticity, your ability to balance, your cognitive function, your eyesight, your flexibility. We're going to come on to all of those a little bit later because I've actually got some tests that you can do at home with no special equipment at all. And I've got a system that you can plug your results into as well, which I'll come on to and tell you all about later and how to get onto that. But as I said earlier, telomeres are DNA protein complexes that cap the ends of our chromosomes, promoting their stability. Think of them, as I said earlier, as being that little bit of plastic on the end of your shoelaces. Now, why do telomeres shorten? Here's the science bit, and then we'll simplify it. But I need you to know this first of all. When cells divide, the telomere is not fully replicated due to limitations of the DNA polymerases in completing the replication of the ends of the linear molecules, leading to telomere shortening with every replication. Well, that's the science bit. Or think of it as taking a photocopy of a photocopy, and how, if you think about doing that, how the image degrades with each repeated copying. So that's why, if we're not leading a healthy lifestyle, we become biologically older, and that reduces our resilience to stressors. So let's have a little look about how love, resilience, kindness, and compassion, how do they really affect our health? Well, there are so many studies on this, and I find this whole topic completely amazing, and I think you will. So bear with me because, as I said earlier, I've got various tests and exciting things you can do, but I've also got a bunch of gifts for you, things that, for example, a beautiful yoga nidra recording for deep restorative sleep. I've got a recipe book for you. I've got various other bits and pieces for you. I'll give you my link to all of that at the end, and also some more research that I think you will find fascinating. So let's look at positive emotions. How do they affect our well-being? Nuns who had written short personal essays, it was found in these nuns who expressed the most positive emotions lived 10 years longer than the rest of the nuns and were protected from dementia. I find that absolutely extraordinary because it just goes to show that if you have a positive outlook, it can actually protect you from dementia largely and also enable you to live longer. It's quite extraordinary, isn't it? Furthermore, when we're able to embrace positive emotions, we feel good. Our thinking becomes more creative, integrative, flexible. In fact, positive emotions dramatically enhance our psychological and even physical resilience. So supportive social ties can add up to 9 healthy years to your life, particularly when we work with others towards a common goal. So have a little think about ways that you express that in your life. So for me, for example, I obviously, as an ex-dancer, once I got myself well enough and started to be able to walk again and so on, I thought, well, what can I do? I love dance. So for me, I have a group of ladies that I dance with in my hometown down in Hastings, and we do something called tribal fusion belly dance. Obviously, I can't go back and be a circus artist and a belly dancer. I'm sorry, a ballet dancer. I'm now a belly dancer. So it is really exciting because we work towards a common goal. We're all on the same wavelength. We're all doing something we thoroughly enjoy. Plus, obviously, you've got to learn choreography, so it's exercising the cognitive function as well. So if you're doing things like that and you're working together towards a common goal, you can add up to 9 healthy years to your life, which is not to be sniffed at. If you ask anybody, do you want to live to a ripe old age? They will always say yes, but only if I'm healthy. Nobody says, yes, I do, and I don't care if I'm not well, and I've got awful problems like arthritis and heart disease and. It's always that caveat, yes, but only if I'm healthy. So it's crucial that we take that on board. Another thing that really helps with health and well-being on all levels is warmth and love in relationships. It dramatically reduces your chances of developing chronic illnesses. So there's a lot to be said for relationships. So let's look at the health benefits for people who receive compassionate love. Most of us innately sense that compassion, love, and social support have great benefits for the recipients. The recent Harvard study called Parental Warmth and Flourishing in Midlife strongly supports this. What we know is that love, closeness, and caring in families is incredibly important for health overall. In this remarkable Harvard Mastery of Stress study, 126 healthy young male students were randomly selected in the early 1950s and given questionnaires about their perceptions of the love they felt from their parents. They followed the study up 35 years later. 91 of the participants who did not perceive themselves to have had warm relationships with their mothers had medically diagnosed midlife diseases, including coronary artery disease, high blood pressure, duodenal ulcer, and alcoholism, as compared to only 45% of those who reported a warm relationship with their mothers. So there's the graph for you. I think it's always helpful to see things because you can actually look, the people on this side, these were the guys who had maternal warmth. You've got 50% of them with diagnosed illnesses at midlife, and you've got 91% here who had low or no maternal warmth. In addition, 82% of those who indicated low warmth and closeness to their fathers had these diagnoses too, compared to just 50% who had high warmth and closeness. And shockingly, 100% of those with low warmth and closeness from both parents had chronic diseases diagnosed in midlife versus only 47% who had warm and close relationships with both parents. Now, I know at this point, most people, when I talk about this, when I'm teaching, will actually sort of say, oh gosh, well, my childhood wasn't ideal by any stretch of the imagination. And I'm not, and I know that is the case. And so what I want to say is that if you had low warmth and closeness from one or other or both your parents, there is so much that you can do to actually turn that around. That's the whole point of what we're talking about today. We're talking about various strategies to actually reverse a lot of the damage that has been done, and this damage can be reversed. It's absolutely amazing what we can achieve. Being loved, cared for, and supported by others is critically important to our health and even treatment efficacy. What we find is that even in conventional medicine, people who are undergoing treatment, surgery, medication, or what have you, if they have a sense of being loved, cared for, and supported by others, they will actually do better than people who are on exactly the same medication or have had exactly the same surgery and who do not feel supported or cared for. So this is the crucial, this is why this is so crucial, that we find ways of working with and reacting to others and developing relationships, but also doing practices like gratitude practices, loving kindness meditation, which I'm going to speak a lot more about coming up very, very shortly. But first of all, what I want to do is just take a look at caring deeply. Women, of course, are deeply affected by emotional stress, as are men. We all are. But there's this incredibly, it's just an amazing study by doctors, professors, actually, Appel and Blackburn, Alyssa Appel and Elizabeth Blackburn. These two women won the Nobel Prize for the discovery, it all goes full circle, doesn't it? The discovery of telomeres and telomerase, which is the amino acid that actually it grows, it helps telomeres to grow. So these women are absolutely amazing Nobel laureates, and they studied two groups of women. They studied mums who were looking after healthy children and mums who were looking after chronically ill children. The researchers were keen to find out whether emotional stress can be correlated with premature aging, as very frequently, I know we've all noticed this, people who are chronically stressed often look haggard and will report undesired weight change, either gaining weight or losing weight. The researchers were particularly interested in whether stress influences telomere length, of course, because this is why they got the Nobel Prize for the discovery of these things. It was found that the women with the highest levels of perceived stress caring for their chronically ill children had telomeres that were on average shortened by 1 decade. Some women were as much as 17 years older than their healthy counterparts. So what about animals? Does receiving love affect their health and well-being as well? Well, I think we would say, well, yes, of course it does. But, you know, I think we have to always come from a position of, well, is there any research that supports that? I think we intuitively know, but let's have a look at what the research says. Researchers in the late 70s were studying the effects of a diet high in fat and cholesterol in rabbits. During the study, a rather strange anomaly became apparent. One subgroup of rabbits had 60% less atherosclerosis than the group as a whole, even though they ate exactly the same diet. So that is really weird. What on earth was causing this 60% reduction in atherosclerosis? It was a complete mystery. It was eventually discovered that the lab assistant who fed and cared for this particular group of rabbits took them out of their cages, petted them, and talked to them before they fed them. The study was repeated twice with the same results and was reported in literally the rock star journal of biosciences. It's a journal called Science, and it's the journal to get published in if you're a scientist. So just that action of showing love and caring to those rabbits actually reduced their cholesterol levels, despite the horrendous diet they were on, by 60%. There is no drug on the face of the earth that can do that. Doesn't it underpin just the magic of loving kindness? Let's look at altruism, happiness, and health in older people. Selflessness and altruism lead to happiness and health, as we might expect. Retirees older than 65 who volunteer to help others rated significantly higher on life satisfaction, will to live, and they had far fewer symptoms of depression, anxiety, and somatization. Now, somatization, do you remember we used to talk about things like psychosomatic illness, and it was actually a really sort of derogatory term. You know, you'd go to the doctor and say, doctor, you know, I've got terrible sort of abdominal pains. And, you know, particularly if you were a woman, because of medical misogyny, which is still very, very, very much the case today, you'd be dismissed as you know, go away, you're a lady with just a psychosomatic illness. What is actually being discovered now, which of course is really, really important, is that somatization is real. If we're stressed, it can have a huge response in our bodies. It can cause all sorts of symptomatology. So this is why we cannot just dismiss and say, oh, it's all in your mind, because yeah, it is, but it's actually resulting in actual physical, real symptoms. So that's what somatization is. So loving kindness can actually reduce all of that. Numerous studies show that adult altruistic behavior is associated with enhanced well-being, improved morale, self-esteem, and positive emotions. Depressive symptoms are greatly reduced among people of all ages who help others. They have higher levels of happiness, plus evidence of enhanced overall wellness. Now, something that I do want to just drop in here is something about random acts of kindness, or even acts of, you know, just acts of kindness in general. Did you know that if you do something lovely and kind for somebody else, what actually happens is that it improves your immune status, it balances and enhances your immune status. Doesn't boost the immune system. We don't have a talk in terms, or we shouldn't talk in terms of boosting the immune system, because that's such a sledgehammer phrase, and it doesn't really actually help us. Because, for example, with COVID, taking COVID, for example, the thing that has been really causing the most problems for people is an overreactivity of a highly boosted immune system. So we don't want to do that. What we want to do is modulate the immune system so that it's functioning at its absolute best to protect us. So if you do an act of kindness, your immune system becomes healthily modulated in you. but also in the person that you're doing the kindness for. But here's where things get really spooky. If somebody is watching that kindness, they too get the benefit of this beautifully, healthily modulated immune response. It's just magic. Kindness is magic. It really, truly is what makes the world go round. So let's look a little further into all of this. Let's look at what else happens when we help people. In fact, research by Lux shows that Lux is one of the great positive psychology researchers. Lux shows that 2/3 of helpers reported a distinct physical sensation associated with helping. About half report a high feeling. They actually feel, whoa, I'm actually feeling quite high from that. 43% felt stronger and more energetic. 28% felt warm. 22% felt calmer and less depressed. 21% felt greater self-worth. 13% experienced fewer aches and pains. Now, obviously, we're all aware, we can all do the math, and we're all aware that, that doesn't add up to 100%, because obviously think of it like a great big Venn diagram. So, for example, some people may have felt stronger and more energetic and also felt greater self-worth. So, it's not, these things aren't mutually exclusive. So I hope that sort of helps conceptualize that. Let's look further at philanthropy, more kindness. Giving excites several different happiness chemicals, including dopamine and endorphins, leading to a sense of euphoria, oxytocin, leading to a sense of tranquility, serenity, or inner peace. Now, I should say at this point, oxytocin, in terms of neurotransmitters, which is dopamine and oxytocin are what we call neurotransmitters. Now, these things, there's no such thing as a one-ended stick when it comes to neurotransmitters. So, for example, oxytocin, we think of it as being the love and connection hormone. But if you were, for example, to give a sniff of oxytocin, which is how it's administered in research studies, to somebody who is a violent psychopath, it doesn't, as you might expect, calm them down. What it does is it actually increases their aggression. So this is why, when somebody says, oh, yes, oxytocin, oh, lovey-dovey connection, not always. So, just bear in mind that, neurotransmitters are a lot more complex than people give them credit for. Brains, for example, viewed on MRI machines, showed that just the thought of giving elicited this cascade of happiness chemicals. Charitable donations trigger our mesolimbic system. In a study from Bremen in Germany, elderly people who helped adolescents work on a life problem improved their own cognitive performance at the same time. The simple yet empowering act of advising a younger person helped boost the brain power of the elder when measured on a word test. Now, this is beautiful research that was reported on through an organization you can see down here. This exists, and it sounds really sort of hippy-dippy and a bit woo, but it is the Institute for Research on Unlimited Love. Professor Stephen G. Post is one of the leading researchers in the kindness, love, and compassion field. And please do look at his work. Do look at the Institute for Research on Unlimited Love, because there are articles and journals that you can access on there that will completely blow your mind as to the power of what we humans can achieve when we start really bringing compassion to ourselves and to others. It's extraordinary. I highly recommend it. Now, I'm just wondering if I can hide this little bit here. Oh, maybe. Oh no, let me come back to you. Sorry, actually, I think I've messed it up. So do I need to go back to screen share? No, I don't. I'm going to leave this where it is. And if you can make it bigger again, Ashley, that's fine. But I hope everybody can see what we're doing here. How do you fix that?
It's still big for me.
Oh, is it? Brilliant. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Fantastic, because it's got a minuscule mind. That's absolutely fine. No problem at all.
Oh no, I see lovely granny and baby.
Excellent.
Older,
Perfect.
nice and clear.
That's what we need. Thank you so much.
No problem.
So yes, well, catastrophe averted, everybody. That's a good thing. Another study found that older adults who shared a memorized story with children improved their own memory. Once again, the very act of being in a mentorship role with a younger person helped the elder boost their mental abilities. Right, okay. Ashley, so what's happening here is that I don't know if I can navigate through. Just a second.
Oh, is it not letting you click through slides anymore?
No, but let me have a little play. Let me
Yeah,
just have a
let's see
little
if we
play
can.
down here. Sorry about this, everybody. No, no, I don't think it's wanting to play. I'm just wondering if I need to stop screen sharing.
Yeah, let's pull it down for a moment
Yeah.
and see if we can
Okay, I'll
restart
come up
it.
to you.
In the
I
meantime, I would love
will.
to know from our audience here if this is resonating with you and feeling maybe even a bit intuitive, or if you've observed this type of benefit kind of manifesting in your own lives, maybe with folks who folks in your community or your own families.
Yes.
It
Thank you.
looks okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
Lisa's offering some advice there.
Oh,
Escape and reshare.
got
All
it.
right.
Yes. We're there
How
now.
about
So you should be able to see a baby.
yes? I see this.
Great.
We see the baby.
Okay, jolly good, and it's working my end. Yeah, I would love to know if
Perfect.
anybody's actually, what your experiences are of kindness and compassion, and how that sort of led to resilience growing. That you've noticed growing in yourself. I think that's really, really crucial. So yeah, thank you for your help as well. It's really lovely of you. Let's look at the kindness of physical touch. The effects of doing kind and compassionate actions can be measured physiologically. Older adults massaging infants had measurably lower levels of stress hormones, including salivary cortisol and plasma norepinephrine and epinephrine. That's in the UK, we call those noradrenaline and adrenaline because the molecules were discovered simultaneously both sides of the pond, and were just given the same molecule was given different names. So that's it sort of explains the mystery between those two things. They are the same. And so yes, just when they got older people massaging babies, it had incredible effects on them in reducing their stress and increasing their resilience to stressors. And when we witness kindness and compassion, even just watching kindness and compassion in action makes you physically more resilient, as does thinking about love. Students were asked to watch a film about Mother Teresa's work, or they were given the task of dwelling on love, so thinking about it and just sort of making sort of just kind of going on an imaginary journey about love and so on. After the two tasks were undertaken, it was found that there was a significant increase in the protective antibody salivary immunoglobulin A. SIG-A is how we call it for short. Now, the thing is, the reason this is really important right now is because if your salivary immunoglobulin A, SIG-IgA or SIgA, is you have good levels, if there's an increase in it, it's your first line of defense. And this is very important at the moment because it sort of lines your mouth and your respiratory tract and so on, protecting you against invading pathogens. So you see where I'm going with this, don't you? Because of what's going on at the moment with COVID. If we need all the protection we can get, we need our immune responses to be as robust as they possibly can be. And so just thinking about love or watching that film of Mother Teresa's work actually would have set people up so they were more resilient and resistant to opportunistic infections. Now let's look at loving kindness meditation. Can it help you lose weight? 3 groups of soldiers were taught to meditate. There was a control group. They were just given diet tips in writing. The next group were a general mindfulness meditation group. And the third group were a meditation group with extra self-compassion or loving kindness metta meditation training. Metta meditation is where we go into a meditative state and we do well-wishing for ourselves and others. And it goes along the lines of, may I be happy, may I be healthy, may I be safe and free from harm. And then we do that same well-wishing, may you be happy, you pull somebody into your mind's eye, may you be happy, may you be healthy, may you be safe and free from harm. And so you go through various people, and you can expand it out to the world, the universe, as the multiverse, as big as you want to take it. But this is what metta meditation is. It's called loving kindness meditation. The 2 meditation groups of soldiers did the meditation as taught for 5 weeks. The control group just did nothing. They followed the diet tips if they wanted to. Participants lost weight in both meditation groups, while the control group gained weight during the initial 5 weeks, as you might expect. The guys were just told, here's a diet sheet, do it if you want or don't. But this is really interesting. Both groups lost weight, but did the effects last? After 6 months of subsequent self-motivated and unguided meditative practice, where they just let the soldiers get on with it, only the mindfulness group with self-compassion meditation continued to lose weight, while the mindfulness meditation group showed no significant weight loss. So this is really interesting. When we are doing a meditation that has an element of compassion, that actually enables us to lose more weight. It's not because we're burning, suddenly our metabolism changes, but it's believed that this happens because we are viewing ourselves with more love. We are treating ourselves better. And so we're probably actually making better choices about the foods we eat, possibly the exercise we take. The findings suggest that developing both mindfulness and self-compassion practices appears more promising for weight loss than meditation alone or simply dieting. So if you are dieting, if you wanted to lose weight, for example, obviously you have to incorporate other lifestyle things like, walking at least 6 times a week for half an hour a day, at least. You've got to move your body. You've got to think about what you're putting in, what the fuel is that you're putting into your body. But if you add mindfulness meditation with a self-compassion element, it will accelerate weight gain. Kind of interesting, isn't it? Even brief training counts. Brief mindfulness meditation training alters psychological and neuroendocrine responses to a really horrible thing called the Social Evaluative Stress Test, the TSST. It stands for TRIA Social Stress Test. This test is utterly vile. They get a poor, unsuspecting student to come into a room. The test takes about 15 minutes overall. They put a little drip. It's not a drip, is it? I'm trying to think what the word is. It's not as, it'll come to me, sorry. I'm getting so excited here about all the wonderful things that we do and that we're talking about. So they have a way of putting a line in. So they put a line in so they can actually then take a blood draw beforehand and a blood draw afterwards. And it's just on the tip of my tongue. It'll come back to me in just a second. So they have that in so they can do the 2 blood draws very, very seamlessly. They get the person to come in. They ask them to, they give them pen and paper and they say, can you please just write a 5-minute presentation about anything that you want to write about? Somebody then comes along and snatches the pen and paper and says, you're up. And they have to stand up in front of a group of 3 people who've been trained, the panel have been trained not to give any facial expressions at all. And if the person starts to falter, they're told, keep going, keep going, keep going. And then they say, right, stop. Now count backwards in increments of 13 from 1022. Now, I don't know about you, but if somebody asked me to do that, it would cause me immense stress. Obviously, it would really with anybody. Of course, they then take the student out and they explain, they properly debrief them and they explain what happened. And it actually is designed to be a stress test and it has no bearing on them or their normal performance because it's totally designed to completely freak you out. So what happens in that under the influence of the TRIA stress test? What was found in people who had only brief mindfulness meditation training, yes, their cortisol levels, that stress hormone we spoke about right at the beginning of this presentation, it did increase. But interestingly, there was less self-reported stress reactivity following the brief mindfulness training. There were no or very low changes to both systolic and diastolic blood pressure following this evil test, the TSST. So it's very interesting because what it means is that even if you have a week's training, just 1 week's training in mindfulness meditation, you won't respond to stress as badly as had you not had that training. And also, if you're exposed to stress, you won't get a sudden increase in blood pressure. Yes, your cortisol goes up, but it comes back down again. So we're going to come back to telomeres. Aside from helping us cope better with stressors, can mindfulness meditation help us live longer? Does it have any measurable effect on our telomeres? Well, yes, it does. There was a meta-analytic review of the effects of mindfulness meditation on telomerase activity. As I said to you before, telomerase was discovered by Appel and Blackburn, and they got the Nobel Prize for this. It's the molecule that actually grows and supports telomeres, okay? A meta-analysis is where scientists take a group of research papers and they statistically kind of evaluate them to see what are all of these papers, if taken together as the, the bird's eye view in this field, what are they actually saying? 4 pioneering randomized controlled trials, including a total of 190 participants, provided information on the effect of mindfulness meditation on telomerase. The meta-analysis results indicated that mindfulness meditation leads to increased telomerase activity in peripheral blood mononuclear cells. Now, these are, if you do a finger prick, you get a blood draw, the blood drop those are the ones, those are the telomeres that are measurable, or that's the blood that's actually measured to see telomerase activity, because it's fairly, your blood, particularly in your extremities, is fairly homogeneous. You'll get a pretty good reading from that. Whereas if you took a sample of bone cells, or if you took a sample of skin cells, if you took a sample of kidney cells, they would all be pretty different, because of course all of those organs have different, different activities going on all the time. So the homogeneous test is to take a prick of blood and look at the white blood cells. So what else can we do? Let's look at the bigger picture. We're going to look at compassionate eating. We touched on this with the weight loss question. The most compassionate and cruelty-free foods that we can eat are the ones that most powerfully promote wellness. Fruits and veggies, nuts, beans, in fact, a whole food plant-based diet. Now, we're going to talk a little bit more about all of that now, because lifestyle plays a massive role in making you more resilient and stopping the development of the diseases that we commonly associate with aging that we spoke about earlier. Let's touch on epigenetics. Don't drown in your own gene pool. If you would like to, and I've got the reference for you at the bottom here, if you would like to, please go and look at the work of the amazing Dr. Dean Ornish and his colleagues, the Geminal study. What they did was they took a group of men who'd been diagnosed with prostate cancer and had opted for something called watchful waiting, which means that the prostate cancer, their PSA, prostate-specific antigen levels in their blood were being monitored, but they weren't opting for treatment. So, and this is fine in many, many prostate cancers, because in very, very men, the majority of men, if they do have a diagnosis, it usually is very, very slow growing. So this is why Ornish and his colleagues decided to look at this particular group of men. They were looking for changes in prostate gene expression in men that were undergoing an intensive nutrition and lifestyle intervention. What Ornish did with this group of men was he did certain lifestyle modifications, which included a low-fat, whole food, plant-based diet. Now, when we say low-fat, the fat content of that diet was less than 10%. 10% or less, I should say. Okay, so it was a very, very low fat diet. So they weren't adding gallons of olive oil to their lovely, gorgeous salads, but instead they may have been eating some avocado with their salad, things like that. So they weren't adding oils in, no sort of lashings of coconut oil and things like that. They also did stress management for 60 minutes a day, which was gentle yoga-based stretching, breathing, meditation, imagery work, guided imagery work, and progressive relaxation. They also did moderate aerobic exercise, which was walking. It wasn't aerobics as in, running on the spot. It was walking 30 minutes a day for 6 days a week. And they also had a 1-hour group support session per week. And, as we said right at the very beginning, didn't we? When we said you've got a group of people working together towards a common goal, it has a massive effect on our resilience and well-being. So what was the upshot of that? Well, what it meant was that Ornish and his colleagues demonstrated that you can turn the genes that express for cancer on or off, depending on the lifestyle that you're actually living. So what it meant was that these men who were doing these particular lifestyle interventions, their cancer was literally that the genes that really coded for that cancer was switched off. And then if you change the diet back again, those genes are switched back on again. So Ornish shows you can switch cancer off and you can switch it back on again. Now, if that doesn't blow your mind, I don't know what, because honestly, when I read that study, I was just like, oh, wow, okay. And another really interesting thing is that women who are obese are actually not just affecting their own lives, they're affecting the genetic expression of their offspring right the way down through to their grandchildren. So anybody who's obese and stays that way is actually that there is this knock-on effect of a massive genetic compromise 3 generations down the line. So this is why we really have to concentrate. You know, I'm not saying that people need to manage body weight, especially tummy, you know, belly fat or anything like that. It's not a body shaming thing. It's not an aesthetic thing at all. Remember we spoke about cortisol? Cortisol is I won't say manufactured, but cortisol, if you have a lot of belly fat, your cortisol levels elevate massively. It's also the seat of one of the pro-inflammatory hormone messengers called cytokines, this particular one, IL-6, that massively drives inflammation. And as we said earlier, inflammation underpins all of those diseases we associate with aging poorly, heart disease, cancers, dementias, and. Okay, so this is why we have to really watch ourselves, make sure that we stay as lean as we possibly can for health reasons, but to really minimize body fat around the belly and around our internal organs, the visceral fat, because this is where this toxic slew of hormonal messengers are really where they're created, where most of them are developed from. Remember, the choices you make today determine your future health. So please, you know, choose well. What are the next steps? Be somebody, be the reason somebody smiles today. Take time to be mindful. Treat yourself and all other sentient beings with kindness and compassion. Reflect this in your daily actions towards yourself and others. Remember, kindness is contagious. If you're kind to somebody, you know, you get all of those benefits. They get the benefits. Onlookers get the benefits. Do random acts of kindness. You know, I've got one giveaway on my site that's a whole list of random acts of kindness, just to give you some inspiration, things you could potentially do. As I said to you, I have got gifts. I never believe in you know, you're sitting here doing me the favor of listening to this presentation. So I would love to give you some gifts. If you go over to my website, it's jayneygoddard.com, and we will bring the details up, or jayneygoddard.org. Both will take you to the same place. I'll give you the details in a sec. But I've got on there a free gift for you, Yoga Nidra for deep restorative sleep. Now, if you've not come across Yoga Nidra, it's a wonderful meditative technique. And what happens is that it's a meditation, but with a difference. And most of the people who've done my Yoga Nidra recording, it's a download recording, and that they've done it, they've actually said to me, Jayney, it's really, really lovely. Love it, but I've no idea how it ends. So I'm going, yes, job done, because clearly they've drifted off to sleep. And that's the whole point of it. Now, the reason why sleep is so important is because, honestly, I could do a whole lecture on that, and I won't keep you now because we're getting nearly to the end of this one. But sleep is so important because, again, if you don't have good sleep, again, you'll start packing all this toxic fat around the belly. I know myself, if I have 2 nights of poor sleep, I'll gain at least a pound of excess baggage around my belly. I kid you not. It happens to all of us. So just be aware of that. Sleep is crucial. So please download that. I've also got something for you that I learned from Dr. Herbert Benson, the grandfather of mind-body medicine. It's a wonderful meditation called the relaxation response. Again, incredibly well researched, and it's been shown that if you do the relaxation response for 20 minutes twice a day, and this recording is an instructional recording, so you don't have to read the instructions and go, okay, well, first of all, I have to sit here and close my eyes, and you think, right, okay, now what do I do next? So you have to open your eyes and go, right, okay, what's the next bit? And you're going backwards and forwards. It's not very restful, is it? So if you listen to the instructions, you'll learn how to do it really quickly. You'll get straight into it, and this is my shortcut for you. It really, really works. I learned this directly from Dr. Herbert Benson. I've also got my Rewind Your Body Clock 10-step quick start plan and my whole food plant-based SOS free, which is free of added refined salt, oil and sugar. It's an ebook of delicious, compassionate recipes for you. There's some real good ones in there actually, and so please check that out. You know, if you've not ventured into the world of you know, whole food plant-based eating, it is amazing. I'm a way better chef now than I eat this way than I ever did, and it was instrumental in me getting out of my wheelchair and getting into complete remission. You know, as I said to you earlier, 10 years full-time wheelchair user, I changed my diet, and this is a story for another day, but it took 3 weeks and I was back up and walking, having been told I would never, ever stand or walk again. This is the power of this stuff. The other thing that I did do, again, haven't got time to tell you all the ins and outs, but I reversed my own biological age by 20 to 27. And I've maintained that over the last nearly 20 years. Which is, my biological age is 57. So I'm 30 years younger biologically than my chronological age. So you see how that works. And it's very simple. It's just mindfulness, you know, stress management by doing all of these meditation techniques, eating well, eating whole food plant-based diet, getting good enough sleep, socializing, exercising appropriately, making sure that you're doing your 6 days a week of a minimum of half an hour a day walking, and also resistance training, and then things like yoga or Pilates or Tai Chi and so on. Coming very soon, I have another download that I'm recording at the moment, which is actually a metta meditation, because we spoke about that earlier and I've got to make it for you. Go to my website. This is a snap of my website. It's jayneygoddard.org or jayneygoddard.com, doesn't matter. And you'll see right at the very top there, I did promise you this, biological age tests. You can just log in completely free of charge, completely anonymously, do a range of tests, log them on the system, and then in a month's time, it will send you an email and say, time to do those tests again. And after a while, after a few months, you'll be able to see how all of these things that you're putting into place are actually serving to reverse your own biological clock. Stay in direct contact with me via my Facebook group, Rewind Your Body Clock, and get my weekly wellness videos on YouTube. Also follow me on Instagram as well. I always put a lot of useful stuff up there. My latest book is called Rewind Your Body Clock. That went straight into Amazon at #1 of all books on Amazon and sold out within 2 hours. They're struggling to keep it in stock. It's been translated into lots of different languages. There's an audiobook version and an ebook version as well as a real world paperback version. I'm very proud of that book. It was serialized in the Daily Mail twice and people love it. They say it's life-changing and people just keep, you know, rereading it and gifting it to their friends. So it's a lovely read. It's a fascinating read. It covers mindset, meditation, nutrition, happiness, gratitude, and all of those wonderful things you can see there. This also is a great resource for you if you're interested in natural approaches to healthcare. This is the organization I head up. This is the Complementary Medical Association website. The address for this is the-cma.org.uk. The organization has been running for 29 years. In this coming February, I founded this organization 29 years ago, which is mind-blowing. And I've got on this website over 7,500 articles, fully referenced articles on health and well-being. So do check it out. And then coming up, and I know that there are some details on the screen for you anyway, but if you're interested, if your interest has been piqued by what we're talking about, please come and join me on the 30th of this month because it's my Resilience and Positive Psychology Creating Health Through Happiness course. It's a course that's designed for people who are working with others, teachers, healthcare professionals, complementary medical practitioners, holistic therapists, doctors, nurses, anybody, soldiers. We've even had army folk coming in doing this course because they've taken it into the army. With the army's blessing, the army is now teaching this course. So it is quite amazing. It's a really, really fantastic course, even if I do say so myself. But go and check the page out on Teachable because don't take it from me. Go and have a little look at the testimonials, because they speak volumes. So I think I just need to finish by saying, nurture the roots of your being. It's your tender humanity in compassionate relationship to the world around you, and you will thrive. Thank you so much. I'm going to stop sharing and come back to you. And I just want to say thank you so much for being with me through all of that. I hope it's been useful. Have there been any questions at all? Anything coming up in the chat, Ashley, that I need to address?
It's really a perfect way to end. Thank you so much for everything that you've shared today, Jayney. Not too many questions. Lots of just positive energy coming through about the resonance of what you've been saying, which is really lovely. Lisa does have a question about sleep versus awakeness and alertness, and how we might be able to, and it's, I'm paraphrasing a little bit here, but the balance of those two things. And it seems like, what, if I'm hearing you correctly, obviously the health benefits of, well, not just benefits, but necessity of sleeping and how it restores everything, all of our biological processes are critical. But I'm curious to know if the research that you've been engaged with has anything to say about the type of sleep that you might get and how it contributes to whether or not you're able to be awake and alert when you are not sleeping.
Okay. So Lisa's saying, is it good to be asleep though? Yeah, we have to sleep. If you don't sleep, actually terrible things happen to you, physically and mentally. If you don't sleep and you have insomnia, you are much higher risk of developing dementias. Obviously, we've also got the massive increase in the production of cortisol, which drives and underpins the chronic inflammation that underlies all chronic diseases. Okay, so crucial to sleep. I think, though, Lisa, that you probably know that, because the questions you're saying and things you say, you sound as though you're very knowledgeable. You sound as though you're a practitioner anyway. So I think maybe it's
during meditation.
Yes, you've clarified.
During yoga nidra.
Sleep during meditation. No, absolutely. If you are doing a meditation, no, you don't want to sleep. Meditation, for example, something like Dr. Herbert Benson's, his excuse me, his system. He recommends twice a day of seating meditation, counting the breath, and you sit up with a nice straight back, actually, so you don't slump back, because it's all too easy to go, oh, this is so relaxing, I'm falling asleep now. So no, if you're doing meditation, no, don't. But if you're using yoga nidra for deep restorative sleep, then there are yoga nidra techniques where you can simply just do the yoga nidra and come back and reawaken in 20 minutes time and get on with your day. Fine. But if you are using it specifically because you have difficulty sleeping, or you fall asleep but you then wake up at the wee small hours of the morning, you can put this recording on to get yourself back to sleep. So this is specifically designed as a specific meditation to lead you into very, very deep restorative sleep. Now, the other really weird thing about yoga nidra is the fact that just a 20-minute session of yoga nidra is believed to be the equivalent of 2 hours deep restorative sleep. So I hope that answers the question. Yeah, okay, that's great. She's a digital technologist but have hypermobility and chronic pain. Oh gosh, okay. So you've done a lot of reading and there's a lot of interest. That's okay, so there's no problem at all. That's great, that's fantastic. Thank you so much. If anybody has, this is obviously, it's going on YouTube, if anybody has any questions, then you can always leave them in the comments, and I can always come back and check. So if there's anybody listening to this after the fact, do ask your questions, because I'm always happy to help out. Just leave a question. I will keep checking in every so often, and or just come to my website and send me a message there as well. And if you would like to join me on the 30th, I would absolutely just love to have you, because as you can tell, I'm really passionate about this, and I think the world needs it. And the course would enable you to go out and take this work out to be able to help others.
And that link is posted in the comments there. And as I mentioned earlier, it's also pinned to the top of the YouTube page that you're streaming from right now. Great. So I am struck by so much of what you're saying, Jayney. The thing that I have found, and I have done yoga nidra a few times and I am astonished at the impact of it as a practitioner of a couple of different types of yoga where there's more focus on physical movement. This is, it really is one of those things that you take for granted, maybe the kind of state of mind that you're in when you're not doing something like yoga nidra, and it just kind of helps draw your attention to something different, which I have felt the same about eating whole foods, which is another thing that I've done as well. And it's fascinating to me how adapted our bodies become to things that are not good for us, and how you can kind of reset like your ability to do some of these the practices and techniques and strategies that you're noting here for us can help you kind of reset and almost give you a window into, oh, that's what it can feel like.
Absolutely. Yes, it does. Yes. In fact, it's very interesting. One of the best ways of doing that, and I'm not going to go into it too much because obviously time, but one of the best ways of doing a complete reset is through water-only fasting. Now, I'm not advocating it because I'm not qualified to lead water-only fasts. There are only a handful of doctors in the USA, for example, who are qualified in this. One of the people to go and check out on this, but it actually does completely reset us, not just sort of mentally and emotionally, but actually physically, in fact, grows an entire new immune system. It's just a 3-day water fast. So go and check out the work of Dr. Frank Sabatino. He's based down in Florida, and he actually runs water-only fasting retreats. And his work is absolutely outstanding. So if anybody's ever thought about, I really feel as I need a complete reset, you can do things like juice fasting. I run juice fasts, and I'm setting up a fasting center. But if people are interested in taking things that step further and actually doing a complete cleanse, I would always say, don't ever just try to do it yourself, because that way lies, there are certain contraindications for a start, but that way lies, potential danger. But do it in conjunction with a qualified doctor, a physician who's qualified in this work, and it can have the most miraculous effects. And in fact, over here in the UK, I'm sure they're probably doing it in the States as well, but with some people who have had a cancer diagnosis prior to having chemo, what they're doing over here is water-only fasting them for 3 days in hospital prior to having chemo, because what it does is it resets the immune system. They grow a much stronger immune system after 3 days, and it clears out a lot of the dodgy cells, because obviously that's what needs to happen. And also they need lower dose of chemo. So they have this toxicity to deal with. So it's a very, very interesting thing. So yes, and Lisa says, oh, lovely, Lisa, you're so good. Thank you. You're like our third presenter. This is brilliant. Yes, and cleanses the liver. It uses the fats in the liver rather than us taking in new fats. Very, very true. That's right. You go into ketosis, and and so not ketoacidosis, because obviously that's dangerous. But you start to actually be able to go use ketones, ketone bodies for fuel. So yes. But that's another story for another day, and it's an entirely different lecture.
Alas, today's session is meant for. We've got one topic for today, so we'll just have to save the rest for the next time that you join us. Yes. Jayney, we'd love to continue the conversation and explore some of these different avenues. So today, take with you self-compassion and kindness, and really thinking about the the impact of those seemingly or maybe perceptively different techniques on your actual physical health and how the positive biological impacts that those things might have, which is a really lovely notion to take with us in a time when so many things are topsy-turvy in the world. It's great just to even think about some of the studies that you brought up today and to be able to refocus our energy on the more affirming and positive, loving, caring kindness that is always still available in the world, regardless of what the supply chain is doing.
Absolutely, yes, quite
right.
Yeah, thank you, Ashley. It's perfect. You've summed it up so beautifully. Thank you so much for doing that.
Well, and thank you for joining us, audience. It's great to have you all, and thank you so much for the really robust comments and helpful information there. There will be a replay available of this session, so if you missed anything, don't fret. We'll make sure that you have access to it by email, and definitely check out Jayneys course, which I've linked in the comments for you as well, for that October 30th event. Really lovely to have you with us today, Jayney. Looking forward to the next time. Hope everyone has a wonderful and kind and compassionate rest of your day.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much. Much love to you all. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.